We are the Office Blokes. I'm Office Bloke Dave.
I'm Office Bloke Mike.
I'm Office Bloke Daz.
That's all I've got to say about that. There you go. Fine. Do we have any sort of Patreon page, Mike, or anything like that? Anything similar or
similar? Well,
just anything in general, that's a bit Patreon-y.
Well, I've got a Patreon page. If you go to Patreon, I've forgotten what it is. I've said it for so long.
You're mad.
Patreon.com.
You mumble it in your dreams at night, mate.
Oh no, yeah. You can start supporting the safe for just £1.50. Believe it or not. Cheaper than chips we've established as well now.
Yeah.
So, how much is that in Zambian kwacha?
Kwacha? Well, about 2,300.
Good guess.
Who knows?
Yeah, that's you proper winged it there though. There was no spiel, was there?
I know, yeah.
So starting at just £1.50, you can go and support us there. Like
King
lots
Peel,
of people have done already.
Loads of content on there.
Yeah, loads of content on there already.
Like the Onion.
Yeah, the Onion.
Sex House.
Yeah. All of the above.
All the good stuff. And we've got a
Donut operator.
And we've got a new segment coming up that's going to be a bit of Office Blokes Confidential and a bit of sort of an Ask Us Anything once a month.
Yep.
And we will be prioritising patrons and channel members to begin with. If you've got questions for us, if you need advice from us, anything like that.
Go for it.
There you go.
Go on.
This is a Patreon request, speaking of Patreon, isn't it, Mike?
Is it?
It is.
Right. This is for N. Godfrey.
Cheers.
Cheers.
See, I can't read that.
How Bill Belichick destroyed Sean McVay's offensive scheme in Super Bowl 53.
That's the fellow. I was just about to say that. I can't read me over.
Just rolls off the tongue,
It
doesn't
doesn't it? Easy.
Let's do it.
Hang on, you know who Bill Belichick is first?
He's a coach, isn't he?
Yep. For
the team that was playing against Sean McVay's.
the one that was...
Wasn't it in Super Bowl 53? Patriots.
Yeah.
I can't remember now. Patriots. Yeah. Oh, you mean to see my sport?
Yeah.
The vast majority of football fans can agree that Bill Belichick is the greatest coach of this generation, but I think less people really understand what makes Belichick so great. Yes, the 6 Super Bowls and 19 consecutive winning seasons provide us with a numerical representation of Belichick's dominance, but it gets more complicated when you start to explore what makes him so great from an X's and O's point of view. I think that if there's one game that truly reflects Belichick's dominance as a defensive-minded coach, it's Super Bowl 53 between the Patriots and the Rams, when New England held one of the most powerful offenses in recent memory to less than 300 yards of total offense. But before I get into why this coaching performance was so great, I want to explain what Belichick and the Patriots defense were going up against. The 2018 LA Rams offense, run by offensive genius and Shanahan disciple Sean McVay, was well-coached, talented, and schematically devastating. McVay at the time was in only his second year as a head coach and had put together an offense that scored more than 30 points per game. The scheme that McVay and the Rams offense were running leading up to the Super Bowl was very carefully constructed and absolutely dominated defenses. The most important component to McVay's scheme is personnel. In 2018, the Rams came out in 11 personnel 90% of the time, which was the highest in the league by a significant margin. For context, the team that was second in 11 personnel usage was Green Bay at only 77%. 11 personnel means 1 running back, 1 tight end, and 3 receivers on the field, which usually forces defenses to respond with nickel personnel or 5 defensive backs. When a defense employs nickel personnel, they're basically taking a linebacker or defensive lineman out of their base formation and adding in a defensive back, thus matching speed with speed. In true Shanahan coaching tree fashion, McVay's offense was heavily reliant on the zone run scheme, and his use of light personnel packages made LA's run game that much more lethal. McVay doesn't really run the typical outside zone that we see from other Shanahan-style offenses like Kyle Shanahan's 49ers or Gary Kubiak's Vikings, though. Usually, the play would have each lineman, including the tight end, take a step toward the play side as the snap is taken. But McVay often adds sift action from a tight end or wide receiver, which makes the play split zone rather than outside zone. Watch how the play side tight end Tyler Higbee blocks the backside edge defender while the rest of the offensive linemen take that traditional play side step. LA's zone run scheme was one of the deadliest rushing attacks in the NFL, and that isn't just a result of scheme. They had
This is extremely technical. He's lost me a couple of times.
Yeah. There's one a few phrases that I'm not sort of familiar with.
It's like a nerd's playbook to NFL players, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. I think what you've got to think, the terms he's using before with like dime,
nickel
and nickels,
players,
players and dime players, whatever. He's just matching speed for speed. So you're putting like a cornerback on a wide receiver because they're both fast. If you put someone else as a wide receiver you won't put a lineman on a wide receiver, for example, because he's the big guy. He's going to
never catch him.
Yeah. So they're looking for when they're playing 3 wide receivers, they're going to throw the ball. So you get speed down the pitch, isn't it? Sort of thing.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
I think you're right there.
Is the play usually dictated by the offensive team, and then the defensive team will have plays that they go, we know they're going to do that, so we need to be positioned in this way.
The plays are called by the offense, aren't they?
Yeah.
The defensive plays, and the defense has to sort of like adjust to whatever they're putting on, whatever they're going with.
Yeah, it's proper technical, isn't it?
Todd Gurley, who was a top 5 back in the league at the time, and one of the best run-blocking offensive lines in NFL history. The O-line recorded the highest adjusted line yards since Football Outsiders started tracking it in 1996, a stat that takes the running back out of the equation as best it can and tracks how many yards the offensive line creates for the ball carrier. This team's rushing attack was historic, but their play-action game is really what made them so explosive and posed the biggest threat to opposing defenses. In 2018, Rams quarterback Jared Goff led the NFL in passing touchdowns on play action with 15 and ranked first in passing yards off play action. LA's play action attack combined principles from 2 different route concepts called Yankee, which I've talked about many times in my videos, and Flood. The zone run scheme set up play action that would cause the linebackers and defensive linemen to flow to one side of the field, and the crossing route coming from the backside would get into the space vacated by those linebackers in run pursuit. Sometimes there'd be one defender who wouldn't fall for the play action and correctly flow to the play side, but they'd usually take the man in the flat because they can't see the crosser behind them. Sean McVay would even get creative by adding in throwback screens and backside drag wheel routes to punish a defense for overcorrecting their recovery during the play action. Whether it was through a ruthless run game, an explosive play action attack, or a tricky backside wheel route, the Rams were dominating defenses. That is, until they played the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Since the Rams ran most of their plays out of the same personnel package and used very similar formations, there was no way of knowing whether they were going to call split zone or their play-action Yankee concept. If you stack the box with an extra linebacker or defensive lineman, they'll burn you with their speedy receivers on play-action. If you sit in a too-high shell with nickel or dime personnel on the field to stop the Yankee concept, they'll run the ball right down your throat all game long. Belichick needed to find a way to stop both the run game and the play-action attack at the same time, and that's exactly what he did. On the line of scrimmage, Belichick used a rare 6-1 front and sat in cover 3 buzz from a too-high shell behind it. 6-1 means New England had 6 men on the line of scrimmage and 1 linebacker sitting behind them. Of the 6 men on the line of scrimmage, 4 were big run-stuffing defensive linemen, 1 was a linebacker, usually Kyle Van Noy, and 1 was a hybrid defensive back, usually Patrick Chung. The main goal of the 6-man front was to prevent double teams from forming in the run game. In the zone run scheme, the offensive line is taught to double team the big defensive lineman up front, then to work up to the linebackers. So take a look at this play from Week 13 of the 2018 season against the Lions. The offensive linemen who are covered by an opposing defensive lineman will block that defender. The uncovered lineman will double team the closest defender, and whichever lineman in that double team is less engaged will work up to the second level. The running back's job is to make one speed cut based on the leverage of the defensive lineman. If the playside edge defender, who's often referred to as the force defender, is leveraged outside like he's supposed to be, the running back will move on to the playside interior defensive lineman. If that defender is also leveraged outside, the running back will move his eyes to the next defensive lineman, but here Romeo Okwara is sealed inside by the left guard, which opens the playside B gap and lets Todd Gurley get to the second level for a 15-yard gain. That B gap was opened up because the left guard Roger Saffold and center John Sullivan were able to double team the 2I Romeo Okwara. If they weren't able to double team Okwara, it would have been much more difficult for Roger Saffold to seal him inside. So by employing a 6-1 front, the Patriots did everything they could to prevent those double teams from forming and keep the gap small. Take a look at the first play of offense from the Rams in the Super Bowl. LA came out in their go-to 11 personnel and New England responded with their 6-1 front. The call was outside zone with sift action from the H-back John Reynolds, and the Rams' offensive line actually did a pretty nice job of blocking it, or at least they thought they did. There was no penetration from any of the defensive linemen up front, but they weren't really trying to penetrate through any of the gaps. What the Patriots' defensive linemen were coached to do in this game was to anchor, meaning not let the offensive linemen gain any ground on them, and wait for the running back to choose his gap. Gurley hit the playside B gap between his left tackle and left guard, but got tripped up by Trey Flowers before advancing to the second level. And he made the right read, the gap was just too small. Since New England was basically disregarding the light personnel packages that LA was coming out in by continuing to put 4 big run-stuffing defensive linemen on the field against 11, they struggled to run the ball. Later,
even if he made that gap, the 2 cornerbacks are coming up.
Yeah.
They had him, or whatever the position it is.
Yeah, he wasn't going to get far, was he?
Yeah. But you notice the other play when they played it before, if the running back and the quarterback had kept the ball, 42 from the Lions had a free run on the quarterback. Because that's where you see the play. They all covered that run for him, so he knew they would get. He obviously knew from the play he was getting the ball. They were going to run it.
Yeah.
But if you looked at 42 from the Lions there, he had a free run, and he just stopped. Because when they all went to cover, he could have just cut through the gap, but the running back went the other way.
Yeah.
But if the quarterback had still had it, he'd have got him. But if anything went wrong, he had a free run on the quarterback.
Yeah.
But interesting to watch this.
Yeah.
the Rams even took out a receiver and replaced him with a tight end to try to match the Patriots' size with size. Instead of LA forcing the defense into lighter personnel packages like we saw all season, they were the ones being forced to change personnel based on what the defense was giving them. Late in the first quarter, LA again ran their split zone, this time out of 12 personnel, meaning 1 running back and 2 tight ends. The Patriots made no adjustment in response to the personnel change and again came out in a 6-1 front. The defenders on the outside of the 6-man defensive line are force defenders, meaning their only job on run plays is to maintain outside leverage and force the running back into the middle where the 4 big defensive linemen are anchored. Here, the run is going to the right, so the force defender, Patrick Chung, maintains outside leverage and forces CJ Anderson to run up the middle right into the big defensive lineman. The playside 5 technique, Dietrich Wise, is also leveraged outside, which causes Anderson to move to the playside 3 technique, Lawrence Guy. Guy was an extremely important factor in the success of this unorthodox defensive scheme because of his ability to 2-gap. What that means is, while he's engaged with a blocker on run plays, Guy can really cover 2 gaps at the same time. At the mesh point, which is the point where Jared Goff hands the ball off to CJ Anderson, Anderson is reading Guy's leverage. Because Guy's helmet is to the outside of his blockers, Anderson thinks he can hit the playside A gap between the center and the right guard. But as he's accelerating through the gap, Guy sheds and makes the tackle. Guy purposely made it look like he was sealed outside and the A gap was open so that Anderson would hit it, and as soon as he did, Guy got off his block and held the run to a small gain. Now, the next component to this offense that needed to be stopped was the play-action attack. Since the 6-1 front did its job against the run, there was no need for Belichick to add a defensive back into the box, so he could sit in 2 high shells all day long. What that means is, pre-snap, there are 2 high safeties rather than 1. This is the best way of defending crossers from those speedy receivers because one of the deep safeties can make defending that crosser his main priority. The Patriots almost always called cover 3 buzz, which drops 3 defensive backs deep and has one of the 2 high safeties rotate down toward the line of scrimmage to match the crosser from one of the receivers. So on this play, Jonathan Jones rotates down toward the line of scrimmage while Devin McCourty, Jason McCourty, and Stephon Gilmore drop deep. This accounts for the Yankee concept downfield, but McVay adds an option in the flat for Goff to check to if the Yankee is covered. Very often that option in the flat will come from the backside to force a defender to follow him, so on this play the flat option is wide receiver Josh Reynolds, and his motion to the play side makes it look like he's a sift action blocker on split zone. The edge defender Kyle Van Noy's reaction to a sifting receiver would usually be to get out of the way because he wants to get into the backfield. But instead of getting out of the way and chasing the quarterback, Van Noy was taught to just lay Reynolds out, which gave the rest of the defense a chance to recover from the play action and cover the pass. When Goff is rolling out right, he really has no options downfield. His tight end Tyler Higbee, who's running the crosser, is covered by Jonathan Jones, and his options in the flat are lagging behind him, which would force him to make a throw across his body over 2 giant defensive linemen chasing him down. Even though the Rams' offense was objectively more talented than the Patriots' defense, they could barely get anything going when they had the ball, and other coaching staffs around the NFL definitely noticed. In 2019, after every coach in the league had a chance to see what Belichick did in the Super Bowl, the Rams' entire offensive scheme was a shell of what it was in 2018. Countless times throughout the season, we saw the Rams come out in 11 or 12 personnel only to face a heavy 6-1 front to prevent them from running the ball. Up until Super Bowl 53, I never saw this team face a 6-1 front with a 2-high shell. But in 2019, after the Super Bowl, they saw a 6-1 front in nearly every game they played. This and significant offensive line regression due to roster moves were two big reasons for the Rams' downfall from absolute dominance to mediocrity. Sean McVay is still one of the most promising young coaches in the NFL, and I don't think a playoff appearance for the Rams in 2020 is out of the question, but we will probably never see this scheme be as dominant as it was during their run to the Super Bowl thanks to Bill Belichick. This was the greatest coaching performance I've ever seen, and it gives us fans a window into what makes Belichick the most dominant head coach in NFL history. That's going to be it for this week's video, the last one of the 2019 offseason, so thank you all so much for watching over the past few months.
That was good, that.
Yeah. I feel like I've just listened to the shipping report.
It's very, very technical, isn't it?
It's good, though. And it goes to show what goes into it. And everyone's copied his playbook.
Yeah.
A defensive playbook there from, like you say, the best defensive coach or best head coach has been in NFL.
Yeah. I wonder how many plays there are. I wonder how many they
for
actually
offensive plays.
Yeah. Well, even defensive as well.
Limitless, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it probably is limitless, yeah.
You know, the amount that the players have to remember, though, because I mean, it's like an orchestrated sort of like dance, isn't it, really?
Have you seen that last play they were talking about there? They were saying like they set up to go a certain route, but when one of the defence people blocked it, he had another option, so he signalled him and he's run behind the line. And then the other guy's seen it, and they've changed their defence and brought the cornerback or the high safety, whatever they called him, brought him up.
Yeah.
So I like to block that as well. So it's like, kind of like it's very, it's like a chess match, isn't it?
Oh, massively, yeah. It's
well
in
depth. Yeah.
There's a lot more to it than I ever thought.
Oh, yeah,
going off the moves and the way you just describe it, and it's like absolutely incredible.
Yeah. That's my takeaway from that video, is to see how in depth and how technical the plays actually are.
Yeah.
And one subtle little thing of just leaning your head that way, making a gap, and then just going boom, shut the gap.
It's poker face sort of style, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I'm showing you this way,
So much
you go there because
misdirection.
I know that's where I'm going, but I'm going to look like I'm going this way, and then boom, got it.
I wouldn't normally notice that in a match, but I think I probably would now.
I think
what he did, he sort of like pretended he was pushing over there, and he just stops him going through the middle.
People let us know in the comments, but I reckon your average fan might not see that in the game.
Yeah,
that's coaching. That's very high-end coaching.
It's very subtle, isn't it?
These things happen in our English football. I mean, I think I know English football right through from top to bottom. These things I see and I think, wow, look at that. And then someone will say to me, what happened there? And I'll start trying to explain. And they go, oh no, this happened. And I'm like, oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, so you're replaying.
I missed it.
Yeah, true.
There's so many moving parts, isn't there, that it'll be for the post-match breakdown where maybe the teams are sat with the coach, they're watching plays, and half the players probably don't know what's just happened.
True.
But they're taught that, and like you say, it's a masterclass. I mean, what sort of like situation to be in, that you've come up with this idea how to combat their offense, and you beat them in the Super Bowl. Only for then the following years everyone to copy your play.
I wonder if they've been sat on that until the Super Bowl.
I think Belichick's that good. He looks at it and thinks, how can I stop them?
And
he's probably studied it.
But you probably
thousands and thousands of times. This is how I'm going to do it.
Their offence was their forte, I guess, wasn't it, the Rams? So that's what he was focusing on.
That's where he had to stop, and he's just less than 300 yards, it says, didn't it?
If you can orchestrate it so that you end up at the Super Bowl against them and haven't rolled out this counter play that you've got, that's your trump card, and you're going to win the Super Bowl, isn't it?
That's what he did.
So what I'm saying is they would have potentially met earlier in the season, would they?
No, probably different
divisions, I guess.
Right. Yeah, so
or
maybe not then.
Or were you going to say, would he have rolled it out against them in a divisional match?
That's what I'm saying. Like, keep it in your back pocket for potentially, because once it's the cat's out of the bag, it's out of the bag. Isn't
one's NFC, one's AFC, aren't they?
Right. So
that's how the championship works for the Super Bowl.
So they wouldn't have met.
No, but when other teams are then lining up against you in regular season. Because they've seen you do it and they're going to go, we're going to copy that. And then he said the Rams have gone from unstoppable to mid-table mediocrity or whatever.
I wonder why after like 3, 4, 5 matches of people playing the 6-1 against them, I wonder why their coach didn't change
it again.
They've sussed me out, or we need to do something different here.
Well, that's what good coaches do, don't they? You look at Pep Guardiola over here, the way he played a certain style of football, people started sussing it out and blocking it. So now he did the inverted fullback. So he's changed it to the inverted fullback. No, everyone was like, what's going on here? Just 2 seasons ago, everyone was going, what's going on with Cancelo playing in the midfield? And all of a sudden, everyone's got that inverted fullback now. Everyone plays with it, pretty much. Who can play it? If you've got a good enough right back to do it, or a left back, whichever way.
But all the best coaches tend to they come up with something new, don't they? Something different. So
I'm sure this guy McVay, was it McVay?
McVay.
McVay. Yeah. So whether he comes up, or we've not followed it enough to know what he's done in the years following 2019, 2020.
No, true
sort of thing. But Interesting that.
It is,
I
really
enjoyed that. Really did.
Yeah, really good that.
Thanks for that, Mr. Godfrey.
Yeah, cheers.
And don't forget to like and subscribe, everybody, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Cheers. Guys.